Go back to Ecclesiastes. This is wisdom. This is the book of wisdom, and it starts with the wisest thing said. Chapter 1, verse 1, the words of the preacher, the son of David, Solomon, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That's a pretty discouraging way to get going. What do you mean vanity? Fleeting, vapor-like, vanishing, or incomprehensible, or enigmatic. And what he is saying is, you can't control life in a fallen world. You can't control it. It just rolls from living people to dead people. The theme of Ecclesiastes is this: you're going to die. You're going to die, and guess what? You won't change the fallen world. You're going to die. Verse 4, generation comes, generation goes, and everything stays the same. The sun rises, the sun sets, everything stays the same. I've learned, says the wisest man who ever lived, and his wisdom came from God, that you can't change the fallen world. This is all about life in a fallen world. Someone who's wise understands this. You're going to die. You're just this little segment of dying people who come and go and are forgotten, and the fallen world stays the same. With one caveat. The only one who can change it is God. We're temporal, He's eternal. So let's look at chapter 3. Very familiar, poetic language, but I want to draw something out of it. There is an appointed time for everything. There's a time for every event under heaven, time to give birth and a time to die, time to plant, a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to throw stones, or bricks, I guess, a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, a time to shun embracing, a time to search, a time to give up as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent, a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What profit is there to the worker from that in which he toils? What is he saying? This is the rhythm of life. It's the rhythm of life. He says in verse 11, God has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. You don't know what God is doing in all these times. There's nothing better than, verse 12 says, for you to rejoice and do good in your lifetime. Eat and drink and see good in your labor. It's a gift from God. Live your life in joy and happiness and goodness as one who knows God. Because you don't know what God is doing in the world. And he gets very direct in verse 16. Furthermore, I have seen under the sun that in the place of justice there is wickedness. Oh, no surprise. And in the place of righteousness there is wickedness. It's just that way. How many times have you seen on television some story about someone who's finally being let out of prison after being 30 years there for something they didn't do? You have a problem. That's a major suffering. How often does that happen? And how often does it happen and we never know about it? This is life under the sun. And notice in the list of verses 1 through 8, killing, tearing down, weeping, mourning, hating, warring. These are the times of our lives under the curse. And this is not the only time that the preacher in the book of Ecclesiastes addresses these kinds of difficulties in life. For example, in chapter 4, we read in the opening verses, "Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun." And the preacher's point is, we don't have any control over those things. They're out of our hands. There is a time to be born, there is a time to die, but listen, there is also a time for judgment. Verse 14, "I know that everything God does will remain forever. There's nothing to add to it. There's nothing to take from it. For God has so worked that men should fear him. That which is has been already, and that which will be has already been. For God seeks what has passed by." What a great statement. You say, well, time passed by. That's here and gone. Not with God. Not with God. You experience suffering, losses, gains. Life goes on. God remembers everything. Everything. Every single thing that happens will have its day in God's court. You need to fear God. You need to set your mind on God as the one who will resolve all the injustice and unrighteousness. Yes, what has passed by us has not escaped God. He'll rewind the tape. I've seen under the sun, verse 16, that in the place of justice there is wickedness, and in the place of righteousness there is wickedness. So I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man, for a time for every matter and for every deed is there. There it is. Every single thing will have its day in God's court. Don't play God. So I said to myself in verse 18, concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order for them to see that they're but beasts. They're but beasts. He can be referring to beasts of prey, or he can simply be meaning they die just like an animal. Verse 19, the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. They all have the same breath. There's no advantage. In other words, as far as this world goes, you're just passing. You're not going to erase fallenness. So verse 22, here's real wisdom. I've seen that nothing is better than that man should be happy in his activities. That is his lot. For who will bring him to see what will occur after him? You don't know what's coming. You only have this life. Be happy. Be happy. Don't be part of disruption. Don't be part of rebellion. What's the point? I love over in chapter 9, verse 7, "Go then, eat your bread in happiness. Drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works." If you're walking in obedience to the Lord, be happy. Let your clothes be white all the time. That means clothes of joy, not clothes of mourning. And put on some perfume. Verse 9, "Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given to you under the sun. For this is your reward in life and your toil in which you have labored under the sun." Look, there's two places in this book that we can see a difference in life. One is under the sun, and the other is over the sun. Over the sun is where God is, and that's where everything is resolved, and everything has its day in his court. But under the sun, in a fallen world, if you have any wisdom at all, take everything God has given you, enjoy your work, enjoy your marriage, enjoy your life, be happy. You don't need to spend your life an agitator, hostile, angry, full of vengeance, bitterness, anger. We're all dust to dust, he says.